Clueless and malicious drone pilots present airports with an array of challenging situations. No two situations are the same, so agility and flexibility are key. Airports require adaptability to combat frequent unauthorized drone activity. D-Fend Solutions offers multiple deployment options to suit all airport needs. D-Fend's proven counter-drone cyber detection solution, Enforce Air, enables airports to detect and, when allowed by regulations and performed by authorized officials, mitigate rogue drone threats safely and efficiently, preserving continuity. D-Fend's long-range directional kit provides a unique dual-sensor solution. It protects takeoff and landing air corridors, offering long-distance coverage that is critical to airports. D-Fend's high-altitude stationary deployment kit can detect drones flying in from the horizon or down below, offering 360-degree coverage of the airport premises, while the vehicle kit facilitates a portable bubble of protection as situations evolve. D-Fend's different deployment options allow for unimpeded airport operations. The hardware is lightweight and compact and can be rapidly taken apart, moved, and reassembled in minutes. Enforce Air. Control the drone to control the threat.
Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. I'm actually at NBAA's, which is the National Business Aviation Association's Business Aviation Conference and Expo. So it's kind of crazy. We might have some connection issues, but I'm hoping not. I'm just warning you in advance. And I want to thank Brett Feddersen here. He is with D-Fend Solutions. And we are knee deep in a month dedicated to this idea of the tech ecosystem. So really excited to have Brett on board today. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it. It's a great show, and we're happy to be part of it.
Absolutely. Now, everybody that's been watching this show, and if you haven't, this is part 4 of 4 of a D-Fend Solutions series across this year. We've done one a quarter. This is our last one, which makes me kind of sad. But every quarter we had amazing guests from the company talking about all different kinds of things, from what's happening in the UK from a counter UAS perspective to what's happening at airports. And today we're really going to tap into Brett himself and his deep experience in the military, in law enforcement, in the FAA, and his perspective on counter drone and what's happening not only kind of in the country and the world, but also in the company for which he now works. So, Brett, let's get to it. You've got a deep background in law enforcement. Tell us a little bit about how law enforcement, or first of all, tell us about yourself. I know I just gave a kind of a long intro there, but tell us a little bit more.
No, I appreciate it. I've had I say an eclectic life, collective career, a very blessed life, and I've been able to enjoy different types of careers, which kind of culminate in me coming to defend. I did law enforcement with the state police, some patrol work. I was a homicide investigator, and then finished up flying helicopters for them until I was called up in the National Guard in Pennsylvania to respond to, obviously, 2001, 9/11. So we had a long deployment in the Balkans before we turned to Iraq. And then while I was on active duty, I was asked to go to the Pentagon, where I was able to experience some of the intelligence aspects of fighting the war in Afghanistan. So coordinating that with some great operators and individuals and great strategic thinkers, I was able to do more national security work and focus on both my aviation background and law enforcement background, but really with the military skills that I had as an aviator and an intelligence officer in the Army. I decided at that point that I was going to take an early retirement from the state police and become a government civilian in DC. where I was hired by the FAA to help build their intelligence operations, and then pulled back into the Department of Defense as a government civilian to continue with the national security work that we are doing with the war in Afghanistan. At that point, I was actually offered an opportunity to go to the White House, where I served on the National Security Council as the Aviation and Surface Transportation Security Director. And it was there that we really started digging into UAS or drones and counter drones. At that point, drones that were threats were called non-traditional aircraft threats, an old acronym that preceded UAS. And then that experience brought me back to the Department of Defense, where we focused on the ISIS problem set, before going back to the FAA, where I was the acting director for national security programs and incident response over at the FAA. Again, dealing with counter UAS, but also dealing with kind of the broader intelligence issues that we were having and the bigger threat issues that we were seeing, even with the emergence of advanced air mobility. And how we're going to deal with security with, integration across the national airspace. At that point, I was enticed to go into private sector, where I served, where a company that was founded by Jim Williams and Michael Huerta, both out of the FAA. Served there and built into a large consulting business there. At that point, Defend Solutions was one of my clients. And I was familiar with the team, familiar with the product, and knew the product was great and worked. So what I ended up doing then was accepting an offer that they had given me to kind of build on the strategy and business strategy pieces, the government affairs and government relation work that we're doing. Really, again, a culmination of all my skills. So landed in a very happy place in our office in McLean, Virginia.
Well, for those out there that are listening, I meet a lot of people, and I've met a lot of people throughout my career, my life, and Brett's background is kind of unsurpassed. And particularly when you think about where he's working now with D-Fend Solutions, in the counter drone world. So looks like we've got a slide up here, Brett. Tell us what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so these are, again, the drone threats and drone incidents. The more we talk to people, even smart people, that we find that they just don't believe there's a threat out there. These are two incidents that happened while Security Council at the White House. We had two drones that broke the perimeter of the White House, ended up on the White House lawn. And then just following about 6 months later, we had the incident where an individual from Pennsylvania flew down a gyrocopter, landed it on the Capitol lawn. And those incidents of both, critical infrastructure and very public sites that we have, sensitive sites, highlighted the idea that we were behind the power curve on developing a system to both identify them and to counter them. And I think that's really in the 2015 range where a lot of the counter UAS technology really started taking off and getting a little bit more notoriety.
You know what, Brett? This time you're talking about, the White House incident, was in 2015. And I remember it specifically because at the time I was in the Air Force on active duty, and I had started this, DoD domestic imagery working group, and we were looking at what the policy should be domestically for drones, right? In the United States, the military drones that had been overseas for so many years, the pilots flying over there and coming home and not used to flying in the national airspace. But we had started talking about counter drone even before this incident and telling people like, hey, this is going to be an issue. And when that drone landed on the White House lawn, we were like, told you so.
Exactly.
And think about that for a second, Brett. Here we are in 2023, and we haven't come really too much further as a nation on this topic when it comes to policy. So I want to back up for a second and kind of tap back into your time in state and local law enforcement, because I think, that experience that you had and the fact that currently our state, local, tribal, territorial government officials and law enforcement lack the authority to mitigate drones. Given your time working in public safety, do you think we are ready for state, local, tribal, territorial law enforcement to utilize advanced counter UAS technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a continuing debate out of the National Action Plan, that we have, where the administration has asked Congress to develop laws and legislation to expand the authorities into, into the national, country nationally. Actually give state and local law enforcement that authority that the federal government has had since 2018 to kind of move through it. I do have, as we talk to law enforcement, and I talk to a lot of folks that I served with, there is absolutely a need. And I think people don't understand until they have a system that can detect just how many drones are out there. And I know the FAA talks about careless, clueless, and criminal. But when you
by the way, I've added a fourth, by the way,
go ahead.
combatant.
Combatant. Yes. Yeah. I think that's absolutely where the functions are. But I believe here in the U.S., we need to just start looking at it as criminal or legal and illegal flying. When you take it back to that way, you're only going to enforce or counter or mitigate the threat from drones when there's an actual threat. And you're only going to do the enforcement piece when there's a violation of the law. Those drones that can come into an area that is, that has a TFR flight restriction around it, they're either going to be cleared by the FAA or they're going to be pre-coordinated in things like the Super Bowl. They're going to be pre-coordinated so you know who's supposed to be where. It's the drones that enter that airspace that we can detect that, again, are not supposed to be there where the enforcement action is going to happen. So yes, the argument that I hear is that there needs to be a pilot program. But I argue that there's already been a pilot program. We've had 4 federal agencies since 2018 that have been using systems inside the United States with effect and without any issues. So at this point, I think, we've done the test bed. We should expand it again to state and local law enforcement who are more than capable of being able to operate these devices and keep the public safe.
I can't agree more, Brad. I mean, I think training is always an issue, but that's regardless of whatever technology or whatever new tactic, technique, procedure that you're introducing, into the force, right? So, with the right training and the right TTPs, to me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, look, you've been so deeply involved in national security. Of course, Homeland Security is a kind of a subset of that. I've taught Homeland Security. I've been involved in Homeland operations, as have you, Brett, in your time. And it's like when there's an incident, the first boots on the ground are going to be the local law enforcement. We saw this with 9/11, right? Who rushed to the Twin Towers? It was the local police and fire departments.
Exactly. Yeah, the first responders that are out there for these incidents.
Absolutely. So, first of all, props to this administration for putting out this national action plan. And that's not a political statement. That's just somebody has done something. And I love that. But what I also love is there has been bipartisan legislation, and I want to underscore that because, this isn't like just the administration. This is now both sides in kind of a vitriolic environment, locking arms on this topic and saying, hey, we need some additional authority. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so, strategically, the argument back and forth, while there is still legislation, there's always a misunderstanding on privacy. And privacy is important to us as a company. It's important to all of us here in the U.S. It's one of our freedoms. But I think there's just a lack of understanding on the techniques and the methods and the equipment that's being used here. When our system's out there detecting, tracking, identifying folks, we're not pulling anything more in the system other than remote ID requirements. I mean, we've been doing this forever, right? This is the same ADSB signals that are going out. This is the same remote ID signals that are going out. Excuse me. And they're going out publicly across the airspace. And so at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I want to interrupt you for a second because, my argument is this whole idea of, we're concerned about privacy or somehow this violates hypothetically a whole bunch of different, federal criminal statutes. To me, it's a moot point now with remote ID because we are actually requiring people to broadcast information and to the public. And once you do that, if that's the similar information that you're capturing, like, what's the issue? It's already out there,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
that's the way I look at it.
And we take the extra steps. You know, we're in 24 different countries, right, where privacy laws reign, especially in the UK with GDPR, and in Europe. So we're very cognizant of what goes on, and we take the extra step where we make sure that we don't capture any video, we don't capture any kind of cell phone data, communication data that's PII or any of those things. We're simply identifying, tracking, and identifying the drone. And then we give the operator of our system the capability to mitigate it. And I think the great part of that is that when we mitigate it, we're not jamming anything. We're not knocking anything down out of the sky. We're not, spoofing anything and making the drone go back somewhere. We are actually taking control of the drone and landing it safely in an area where the operators of the system can collect the drone. And at that point, because it's not damaged, if our system shows you where the operator is and it shows you where the aircraft is, it allows law enforcement to talk to the operator, give back the drone safely, undamaged, and give them an education or a warning or a citation in some instances for flying in the wrong places. The other aspect to that is if it is an actual criminal event, then that becomes evidence or intelligence value on the battlefield, right? That is not damaged and just dropping collateral damage as it falls out of the sky. Who knows where? With mass events, it's really difficult to really take that step. Kind of circling back, though, with this conversation on privacy, I quite don't, while it's a bipartisan issue and there's some great laws and bills that are set out there, we have not seen any type of forward movement with putting those bills into amendments into the FAA reauthorization or addressing the issue. And we've had lots of smart people across industry, the government, foreign allies that have made the comment over and over again that, it's just a matter of when, not if, we're going to have an attack from a drone. And these can be just physical attacks using the drone itself. The leaflet drops that we've had out in the NFL games. We had one recently in the Commander game that just, came over. And a lot of people, I don't think, understand why you stop or pause the game. But when it is a drone that nobody is controlling in that space, you need to, take some action to safely take care of the individuals, that are dealing with it.
Absolutely. I mean, so many different use cases. You just talked about stadiums. You've mentioned other critical infrastructure. I want to talk about this a little bit more, Brett, in detail. Now, before I do, I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't seen D-Fend's Enforce Air in action, we just rolled a little video at the beginning, but Enforce Air has evolved over time. There's Enforce Air 2, and we did a worldwide release on that with D-Fend, so check that out. And I want to talk, because I'm at NBAA, right, which is business aviation. Now, these are the folks that are typically at those smaller regional airports, like the one in Henderson here in Las Vegas. Let's talk about the airport use case, because this is significant. And by the way, Brett, I think you guys need to be here next year because there are no such companies like yours here.
Yeah.
And I think I think you guys would add such value to the conversation, because here's what I'll tell you about what I'm seeing at this show. They've actually embraced drones and advanced air mobility. And they're talking about airspace integration. So you guys are part of that conversation.
Yeah, we have these conversations quite a bit that, there has to be a security apparatus beyond just looking at UTM and understanding how to manage traffic, unmanned traffic at a lower level. You have to be able to have some more situational awareness and a capability to deal with it. And if we allowed the drones to integrate, which we should, and we should do it soon because the capabilities are there and the benefits are huge, then we need to, kind of understand that we have to be able to mitigate that and see it. So it's more of a trusted traveler aspect, much like pre-check when you're going through the lines, being able to see and understand where these aircraft are. And you can see the issue with airports worldwide, right? Pittsburgh had one not too long ago. Go ahead.
Yep. I was going to say, Brett, we've got this slide.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we go back to Gatwick, which woke everybody up about how it interfered with the operations there. In the U.S., it's very important. Commercial aviation in the United States is 5% of our GDP. And if you make a disruption, that takes an hour in LaGuardia, it's going to take 48 hours before that disruption comes out of the system altogether. And this is where the frustration that us as travelers find when the maintenance is off or the pilots have timed out. Those kind of things happen with the disruption. So even if it's not a physical impact, which could be catastrophic to an aircraft, as we've seen with bird strikes and the Hudson, if it's not a physical thing, the disruption itself across an airport still impacts the economy and impacts what we have. So strategically, there just needs to be some type of counter-UAS system at every airport. It's just better for the airlines, right? And it's better for business aviation to ensure that they're being able to fly from point to point and not holding for, half an hour, 45 minutes because they had to stop operations at an airport. Again, our system able.
Hey, Brett.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say something. The good news about the FAA Reauthorization Act, at least the one that's floating around and hopefully will get finalized in due time,
yes,
actually had an extension of that Section 383.
Yes,
an expansion of it, which was certain large airports, etc., large and small.
It is. And the FAA has been doing a great job with the program. So we are actually selected.
Drum roll here. Tell us about
it. So yeah, the Section 383 program came out of the 2018 authorization, and it gave the FAA the ability to test both detection equipment and mitigation equipment in the airspace. They used it out of obviously their technical center that's in Atlantic City, but we were selected for the program as well, and have gone through the testing of detect, track, and identify, and then separately the testing for mitigation. And we've done well. We moved on to a second phase where we put our systems in Syracuse. The FAA was doing continual testing both at Atlantic City Airport and up in Syracuse, and kind of moving forward. This is a big step in validating what we already know because of international airports we're operating at, which is that our system does not disrupt the national airspace system or communications with any type of aircraft. And that even the mitigation piece does not interfere with any of the aircraft operations. And again, going back to air part interference, our system takes control of the drone and moves it to a specific space. What that does is that prohibits the drone from flying across runways or taxiways on a way to get back home because we have full control of the drone. So it's kind of a great step for us here. Now we need to see the regulations, the guidance come out of the FAA on all the equipment that they tested. And then we need to kind of move forward with actually deploying these more broadly here in the US.
Yeah, so I mean, we're kind of talking around the edges here, but let's dive a little bit deeper as to why D-Fend Solutions and Force Air and Force Air 2 is just ideally suitable for the airport environment. I mean, that when you think about sensitive environments, I think this is probably one of the most sensitive use cases, quite frankly.
It is, right? Because if you jammers, for instance, just can't be used on the airfield. They're great for overseas when we're on the battlefield. Our equipment's being used as well in conflict areas. The military's using us, but at a domestic airport where we're trying to keep everybody safe and the millions of travelers that travel daily across the U.S., we want to be able to make sure that when we operate and show where the drones are from detection, all the way to giving the officer the ability to mitigate that drone, you want to make sure that there's absolutely no disruption, again, because of the economy, but mostly the safety, right? You don't want it damaged to an aircraft. You don't want any of the workers that are out on the ramps to be injured by a drone flying by, and you don't want it to, impact any of the passengers that may be in the main terminal as well. So, even out to the parking lot space, we have some domestic airports. I'm not going to name which one, but there's some airports that actually have about 200 incidents per week when it comes to
Oh my
drones.
gosh, are you kidding me?
No, it's one of those things, again, that people just don't understand the problem until they have a detection system in place where they can see what the issues are and address those issues.
Well, that's unbelievable, really. And you know what's interesting, Brett, that I learned here, a lot of these business aviation groups, they're looking at drones to be part of their flight departments for various reasons, whether it's looking at the foreign object debris, right, runway and things like this. And that's what I love about your solution, is that you can distinguish, like, you know, the good, if you will, you know, drones versus the ones that should be there, especially as airports themselves start increasingly adopting drone technology to be part of their own flight departments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons I joined the company, is that this product is so versatile and so effective that we are saving lives across the globe. And it's important that that comes to the US, not just for airports, but for critical infrastructure, for stadiums and mass events. You know, as we go through, our system is actually, as you saw in the video in the beginning and the slide that's up now, very versatile and has a lot of flexible configurations that our customers love to have and use. I think one of the things that we don't have up there, but is really critical to us, is that our new design, which is in the right bubble there, because we can put it in a vehicle, we can put it on long-range antennas, such as the one in the middle, and then we can put it stationary as well. We have a tactical version that sits on a tripod, but that system, the antennas can come off. We have a backpack that's specifically made with embedded antennas, and so the system can actually be carried in a backpack, you know, that looks like any other backpack you have, and be able to walk around a mass event in area. Thank you. Right there, you see it. Which is huge because it is portable, and you know, the mobility for it, both our military and our law enforcement love this design and love the way it works.
Well, and hopefully, if and when TSA actually gets the authority to do these, they can run around with that backpack as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
right. Or again,
you know,
stationary.
because they're right there. Exactly. Yeah. So, the backpack is part of Enforce Air 2, right? Tell us a little bit about this evolution.
Yeah. So in 2018, Enforce Air 1 came out, and it's still in use. It's being used by quite a few customers. And we recently announced this summer the launch of our other system, the Enforce Air 2. There's a lot of things that make this system perform better than the other system. And we've taken a lot of feedback from customers as to what to engineer into this system and to how to engineer it. The capabilities are great. The distance for detection and mitigation have been expanded. It's very effective in urban environments. It has a lot of noise filter to take the radio frequencies or other electronic disruptions out. And then from that point, though, again, with the versatility of the configurations have made this great. And it is also, I don't want to say over-designed, but it is designed so that it can grow within the same box and not have, you know, have additive capabilities in the future. We know we're a great system for RF cyber, but we also know that Be Holistic, we partner with radar systems and electric optical systems, or on the back end, right, jamming systems to provide 100% coverage of an infrastructure or an airport that allows everybody to capture. So it's been phenomenal. The feedback we have has been great. We're excited to push this out. We think it's a game changer, both on the battlefield and here in the US.
So I think you alluded to it, but I'm just going to ask you directly, how has Enforce Air been received, not only by the airport community and those defending it, but otherwise?
Great, because we've had you know, systems again tested by FAA, tested by TSA, and these tests have helped solidify what we already knew, which is that the performance in this Enforce Air 2 has hit the next level. It is the feedback, and I tell you, one of the biggest things that we get is we have a GUI system that the operator uses on a tablet or their personal computer that allows them to see the environment, identify the drones, and take action to it. We consistently get feedback that our command and control system that we use, our GUI system, is intuitive, it's easy to use, it's simple, and they like to take it because we allow the integration. They like to take it and overlay it on different maps and systems. So they like the fact that it's simple and easy to use. Literally, when we mitigate, it is just a push of a button for the operator to take the mitigation.
Well, that's really key. I think time is of the essence when you have these kind of incidents. And I also, just from working with you guys for so long, know that the deployment, the setup, even for the tactical version, is very rapid, which, you know, like you said, I think to re-quote you back, can save lives. Because you can't be spending 30 minutes to set up a system to see if something's there. It's got to be rapid fire. So tell us, Brett, like a little bit more about your journey, your personal journey. You're with D-Fend. You talked about like, oh, I knew this was a company that was going to make a difference, that was going to do things. I mean, you come from law enforcement, you come from the military and intelligence community, the National Security Council, the FAA. The pedigree you have is like crazy. And you're working for D-Fend, so good on them for scooping you up. Tell me about that conversation. How did that go? Like, what was your thought process in, because I know you had been working in the AAM community and, really, really championing that community through Accelerate UM and some of the other work you were doing. When I saw that you had joined D-Fend, I was like, wow, D-Fend, that's big. So tell us about that decision.
Yeah, it's again, this is a great place for me to be because I can use all of my skill sets. We're talking to law enforcement, we're talking to different sectors that need this type of service. But again, it's really the culture and the team. Here in the U.S., it's a very diverse team with diverse backgrounds, and it's just a fun environment to work in. And the purpose of going out there and making sure the systems are procured, making sure the systems operate, and making sure that the missions that we have, very important missions in the U.S. for national security, especially along the borders, both south and north. These missions that are being done are very critical to our national security. So understanding the strategies that we've put in place nationally, knowing the strategies we have for counterterrorism, knowing the techniques that law enforcement need to employ, even prisons need to employ this, because of the issues there. It was just the purpose that what was behind a great product and a good team made it an easy switch for me. So I was doing a lot of work on the Hill, and we were working on, again, how to get counter-UAS language that would be reflective in policy and legislation and regulations with the FAA. And that work, both in the AAM community and ties right into the integration of UAS and counter-UAS, began to grow. And, as I did more work with them, we started talking about opportunity to come on board full time, and I decided to go ahead and make that jump. It was a very comfortable and easy decision for me. Again, this is not my public sector background. The issues are, but in private sector, dealing with how do we get a system into the customer's hands so that they can accomplish the missions that they need. Were very important to me. And so the government affairs piece allows me to continue engagement on the Hill and talking to legislators or individuals, the political aspects at the state level and the local level, because I grew up at those levels, allows me to, make sure that they see the value with both our system, but other systems as well, but the counter-UAS system altogether, and how they can employ it effectively. So that was an easy transition kind of coming over. The intelligence piece, we've all seen the battlefield, issues in the Ukraine and now in Israel. And we've saw these in Syria, we saw them in Iraq, we saw them in Afghanistan. You know, these are now part of the battlefield, and they're a big part of operations and maneuver on the battlefield, no matter where the conflict is. And if you're going to use these drones, then you're going to need the ability, obviously, to stop your adversary from using the same type of drones or even different drones. We've got a very large library that is constantly being updated, and it's just good to see that these are in use. And so I get the satisfaction that I used to get for doing national security work for the people and the public as a government employee. I get that same satisfaction now as a civilian, offering the same type of security that we need across the airspace.
Well, like I said, they're lucky to have you. And, you know, you're absolutely right, Brad. I mean, what we're seeing across the world, what we see overseas, it's really not, it doesn't take a great leap of the imagination to think how that can happen right here at home. I did just read this morning that Israel has banned the use of recreational drones either yesterday or as of yesterday or today. You know, even when you have amazing systems like yours that can detect, you know, like you said, good versus the bad, you know, why even, right, risk that? So if you say like you're not flying and then somebody is, that makes the decision a lot easier as to what you do with respect to mitigating that particular drone, right, unapologetically.
Absolutely. You know, and when we talk about the state and local law enforcement using this, the aircraft is really another vehicle, right? So law enforcement has the authority to stop vehicles that are a hazard to people, whether they use a pit maneuver to disable the vehicle or they're using stop strips to disable the vehicle. The only way to really disable an aircraft and do it safely is to take control of it and move it to a safe place where you can go ahead and pick it up. Again, you don't want to jam it and knock it out of the sky. But law enforcement needs this ability because we now have this, you know, drone services and recreational drones with individuals, again, who may be careless or clueless, but are doing illegal acts. You know, law enforcement needs to take the steps to be able to do it. So again, it's a no-brainer to me to push it out. I think in some of our customers overseas, they were quick to adopt counter UAS and to give the authorities to their law enforcement at the state and local levels. And by doing that, then they've been able to really create an environment where they can detect, you know, legal drones and illegal drones and take action before something happens. Even here in the U.S., we've had several incidents where people have armed drones, have used drones to intimidate people or invade privacy. And then again, there's just no way for law enforcement to take action to stop those illegal or to stop those crimes. And so it's important that we push this. And I encourage anybody who's out there listening, please contact your your congressman or congresswoman, and have them push to, as a minimum, expand the authorities to state and local law enforcement so we can actually get protection out there.
And you know, when you think about it, Brett, it's not only great for the public, it's not only great for the drone industry writ large, and of course law enforcement to have the ability to do this. It's actually great for drone pilots themselves to have law enforcement using something like either like using Enforce Air as an example. Because I think the biggest concern drone pilots is, oh great, Joe Bob law enforcement is just going to be like blowing my drone out of the sky or jamming it or spoofing it, and, you know, uncontrolled flight, and where's it going to go? You know, this protects everybody, including the drone pilots themselves. You know, because
yes,
they are, let's just say they are just the careless person or just the clueless person. You know, they're
right.
not getting penalized with like a drone that's been blown up, and then law enforcement also, you know, they're not getting claims for damage. That's
Right.
huge.
It is. And, you know, the insurance industry is already in the space trying to figure out how to deal with drones and how to deal with, you know, electronic vertical takeoff aircraft. You know, they want to be able to understand how, you know, AAM is going to come into our national airspace. It's going to change our society for the good. I can't wait until we get it. I know there's eVTOLs that are being certified and out there flying. But even them flying around at low levels or higher levels, they should have somebody watching and being aware of the hazards out there with recreational drones or those that are flying it illegally. So again, you're right. Our system can do that, and it can give it to a point where it keeps the drone intact, so that they can put it in evidence and give it back eventually, or give it back immediately and be able to give the individual warning for the way the flight is. But AAM pilots are going to need somebody looking out for them as well.
Or guess what? Whisk is here, and
Yes.
their whole gig is we're going autonomous. Like, we're not going to have a pilot. Like, unlike Volocopter, who's going to be literally flying. They flew this morning, flew yesterday. I'm going to watch them tomorrow. I'm so excited. But like Whisk is like 100% autonomous. Think about that.
Yeah, Whisk has done amazing things, and they're really pushing, the envelope of autonomy and AI and safe operations in their aircraft. And I know that I saw their most recent one, right, that actually has more passenger space to it. But again, it comes back to what we've seen over and over again with vehicles that are using AI and autonomy, the self-driving cars and trucks that are being tested, right? The human that operates and monitors it is great, so that we have an action in there. But it is safer to have the computer assess things much faster than we can as humans, and react to a very conservative safety profile. So I think Whisk has taken the right approach. The FAA and NASA have laid out that in the loop, on the loop, out of the loop. And I think they're positioning a very safe and effective aircraft that will be able to enter into that regional space, that AAM, UAM space, and accomplish great things. But again, when you have a system that's autonomous and AI, it can talk to other systems, which means that even our system, with the open integration we have, will be able to see and be able to communicate things back and forth. So yeah, Whisk is doing great things. Volocopter, I know they're out there flying around. I saw the announcements for that as they're going through. I know, Joby is obviously running forward as well, and Beta is doing a flight down the coast. So, great things are happening in the AM community. We just need to give them that safety blanket underneath that allows them to land at these vertiports, to land at the helipads, to go into the traffic at the airports.
I think you just created a new tagline: D-Fend Solutions, your safety blanket. I love it. I love it. All right, so we are getting close to the end of our time, which I knew would fly, because it's always fun talking to Brett. So you guys just had the Enforce Air 2 release, right? That was huge news. You guys are constantly evolving, as you said, always updating your library and things like this. We're almost at the end of the year, Brett. I can't believe it, right? 2023
Yep.
Coming to a close. As you look forward to 2024, what do you project, either for the industry or for D-Fend Solutions vis-a-vis new announcements to the, or products, or, evolutions, to the extent that you're able to talk about any of that?
Yeah, so really, when we're looking at kind of the future here and forward in 2024, is our expansion again into the U.S. market space, which is both critical infrastructure, airports, prisons, law enforcement areas, right? And obviously defense, justice, homeland, and energy, being able to use counter UAS. So we want to see that safety blanket be extended, so that everybody can understand what's out there and take control of it. I think it's important for everybody in the communities, including airports, to know that the guidance was given back in 2020. And we're a system that doesn't impact any of the laws or violations that are out there. We're a system that can move it safely. What we're really trying to look for now is that, people need to understand that they can go ahead and own a detection, tracking, identification system and have mitigation added to it down the road. And our system doesn't require a second system. It just requires another license. So it's important people to understand that they can buy the detect quality that we have, so that they can see their environment and still react and keep it safe, without having to get the full system. And when those authorities come, hopefully before 2024, then they'll have the ability to do the mitigation as well.
Well, that is an excellent point. I think, just a foot stomp that you don't need the whole enchilada. You can engage in the detection right now and then mitigation down the line, if and when needed. One thing real quick, because I want you, as we close the show, Brett, I want you to tell everybody how they can reach you. I did want to do a very quick shout out to USI, or the Unmanned Safety Institute. They're letting me camp in the booth, as you can see, here at NBA BACE. I could not get Wi-Fi in my hotel room. That was a first ever. So I really appreciate that and their willingness to work with me here. But please tell everybody how they can reach you and learn more about what you're doing, what D-Fend is doing, and of course, Enforce Air and Enforce Air 2.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way is to go to the website and pick up our phone numbers. When you see our logo, it's D with a dash and FEND solutions.com. So defendsolutions.com is the best way to reach out to us. Especially if you're not in the U.S., we have obviously partners overseas that will be able to help get you to the right people if you have any questions. And we're always happy to talk about how we can be of value and actually build a solution for our particular clients.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brett. Thank you, everybody, for joining with us today. And for everybody out there, we are out here.